Good morning, everybody. It is 8:40. I'm going to call the Grand County Budget Advisory Board meeting to order. Present is myself, Chris Baird, Budget Officer, Mallory Nassau, Assistant Commission Administrator, Lane Gisler, Airport Director Andy Solzvig. Lane's a board member of the Budget Advisory Board, as well as Travel Council Director. Chris Kaufman, our Treasurer and Secretary of the Board. Quinn Hall, Clerk Auditor, and Renee Baker, our Personnel Services Director. Let's see, I think we have a quorum, don't we? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, so that should be good. First item under action items is approval of the minutes for October 2nd Budget Advisory Board meeting. Anybody have any corrections before we get a motion? Or a motion if you're ready to approve them.
I'll move to approve the minutes, Chris.
Okay, Quinn moves to approve the minutes. Second. Anybody?
I'll second it.
All right, Elaine Gisler seconds the motion to approve the October 2nd Budget Advisory Board minutes. Any discussion?
No discussion here. Just wanted to just declare that this is Gabriel and I'm calling in. My internet's down at home.
Okay. Welcome, Gabriel.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
All right, I'll call for the motion. All in favor of approving the October 2nd, 2020 minutes, say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, motion to pass the minutes is successful unanimously. Moving on to review of budgets for 2020 amended and 2020 tentative. First up is the Travel Council, but I wanted to skip ahead a little bit to our sales, use, and excise tax projections, just because I wanted to kind of go over TRT real quick. And so I'm going to share that screen just so I can show the trends with regard to TRT. This will kind of play into what we plug into our revenue side of the Travel Council. I'm just going to look at TRT right now. We'll come back to this later for the other taxes. But the average over 5 years, is between 11 and 12%. However, if you look at the trends, the last couple of years they've been trending down, and that's without any influence from COVID. So we went from 2017, which was about 12% growth over the prior year, and then down to 7.5%, and then down from there, we closed 2019 out at 5.9%. So we're seeing a downward trend, and I think we're probably aware that, in 2019 at least, part of that had to do with pulling overnight accommodations out of the permitted use table for a lot of properties in the county. I kind of expect that will likely continue into 2021. Obviously, 2020 is going to be a weird year, so we'll kind of skip that. But if we were to plan on 1 year's worth of growth, then I would say, it would be about 6%. One thing to realize, and we discussed this last time, normally what we would do is we'd project out, our growth for 2020, and then we would add growth on 2020 to get to our 2021 figure. There's been a pretty big disruption in 2020, and so what we discussed last year would be to kind of skip 2020 and to build our 2021 revenue projections based on what we would expect for growth, but building it off of 2019 instead of 2020. Does everybody still want to head in that direction with regard to projecting our 2021 sales use and excise tax growth? Or any comments on that?
I'm on board with that, Chris. It seems reasonable.
What do you think, Elaine?
Yeah, I think I agree with what you've projected out here, and I did not put any 2020 projections into the worksheet because I wanted to wait to see where we ended up at the end of this month. I'm sort of taking it month by month to look at it, but I think I definitely agree with what you've got projected here.
Okay. So I just wanted to go over that before we have a budget. And so I'm going to stop sharing this screen and now bring up the Travel Council budget worksheet. And looks like Elaine, or Jaylyn Hawks joined us, so she's with us now. Okay. Let me make this a little bigger so it's easier to see on the screen. Okay, so the first part of the Travel Council budget we'll go over is the revenue side. And let me scroll back so I can see 2019. So in 2019, Travel Council brought in $2,676,000 roughly. And so I'm just going to in this field kind of look at what that would look like if we tagged on 6%. I need to change this. So if we were to say that we're going to see 6% growth over 2019 in 2021, that'd be about 2.8 million. So what you've got laying down at 1.8 million is about $1 million short of what we would see if we saw 6% growth over 2019's numbers.
Yeah, I think I don't think we're going to have the international market come back, and that's their spending was about 10 million in Moab for 2019, and I don't think that's going to come back for the first half. So I think we're going to, be at a loss. So, and granted, my number is conservative, but I feel good about where it's at the moment, based on what I know from the travel industry and how hard it's been hit. So.
All right. Just going to tally up what we've got on the expense side. So I don't think that I'm going to project, that conservatively for the other part of the TRT. I think that that's far too conservative. We're up to, right now, I mean, with July's numbers, we saw 2.5% growth
Mm-hmm.
in July over 2019 in 2020. So we're already back to over 2019's levels by 2.5%. So, let me just see what percent 1.8 is. So you're projecting like 67% of 2019.
Yeah, I don't feel confident that we're going to get to that 2016 number. I know we had a good July. I just don't feel confident that we're going to exceed and hit almost, what is that, almost 3 million? If we take it up 6% on my end, 2.8 million.
All right. I mean, it's kind of difficult to say, for sure,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe July was an anomaly and an outlier with regard to the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't really seen any evidence that our economy has slowed down since July. I haven't seen any anecdotal evidence that it's slowed down, or any other kind of evidence that it's slowed down.
Mm-hmm.
Have you?
Well, I think when I look at the Visa spend, it's down. What I've looked at for the first half of the year, I mean, you know, the fact that we're going to lose the international revenue into the community. We lost 1,400 bus tours that went into Arches. That's non-existent. The airline industry is suffering. So, you know, I think and I might be too conservative, but just based on the statistics that I'm looking at, I mean, we can take it up. If we take it up to 2 million, but I would not want to venture further up the ladder than that. And not at this time, not at this time until I see what happens at the end of this month when we get our distribution.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the issue, Elaine, is that if we set the budget low
Yeah,
and you bring more money, we have to go to a public hearing to increase your budget so you can spend that money.
right.
If we bring the budget down, we don't have to go to a public hearing. You can decrease your budget without a public hearing, but you can't increase it without a public hearing. And
Okay.
so,
And
yeah,
isn't it an
that's a
option to keep the, sorry, this is Chris Kaufman. Isn't it an option to keep the spending lower and just, if you feel more comfortable, budget to put some money into savings?
Well, I put 400,000 into the fund surplus. Could we increase that?
Well, that's pulling money out of your bank account. You don't want, we want to zero that out. I don't want to take any money out of your
Okay.
surplus because you barely have enough in there as it is.
Okay.
So, I mean, one thing we need to do is get rid of that. We don't want that.
All right. Well, in that case, obviously, we don't want to go to a public hearing. So if it looks like you're projecting the 6% on the other side, with what we just looked at, then, we could take that number up to the 2836,823. 2836,823.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could have kind of have two budgets, so to speak, like, your plan would be for a lower level of expenditure, but we would,
Right,
budget for that 6% growth from 2019. You have to remember
Okay.
that when we're budgeting 6% growth from 2019, what we're really budgeting is 3% growth in 2020, and then another 3%, so to speak, in 2021.
2021, yeah, got it. Okay,
Because we're not compounding the growth using 2021's figures, because
Mhm.
it's going to be way off. That's
okay,
normally what we do. So we're kind of skipping a full year of growth by just saying we're going to do 6%. But, we could go more conservative than that, but I wouldn't necessarily go any less than just 100% of 2019.
okay.
And we should be conservative with our spending, just in case
Yeah, well,
it doesn't end that way.
I think you'll find that down in the expense column, but, okay, so we'll budget for,
So, well, let's, what is it, does anybody else have anything to say about this on the board? Any thoughts? I mean, if we did just a flat 100% of 2019, that'd be about 2.6 million.
mhm,
And that would be, basically no growth since 2019. Which
Well,
seems conservative to me. At this point anyway, it does. But again, we're only going off of one good month because
Right.
everything before that month was really dismal.
yeah, and that's where my hesitancy was in planning. But the fact, I do not want to go to a public hearing. We get enough scrutiny just day to day, the travel council. So, maybe that's what we do, is we go with the 2019 projection, like 2.7 million.
All
I'll
right,
just
well, let's-
say, Chris, that I appreciate Elaine's conservative projections, but I also agree public hearing is not a fun thing to do. And so I would, even though I appreciate your conservatism, Elaine, I would say let's go with the 2.8 million and we can decrease if we need to.
Okay, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, the issue with the transient room tax is how we project it doesn't just affect the travel council. It affects the general fund as well, because
Right.
the amount of money that we project TRT is going to contribute to the general fund makes a huge difference in terms of how we budget for the rest of the county. And so I don't want to, budget 67% of 2019 for the travel council and then 106% of 2019 for the other TRT. That doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so
Yeah,
we've got to kind of figure out, but there's another, I guess the other issue is that we are trending down. We have seen that we're trending down. We closed 2019 at 5.9%. And that was down from 7.5 the year before. So, it may be a little bit too optimistic to budget 6. But again, we're leapfrogging over 2020.
right. Well, I think if we put in what you've calculated there, and then I'll just keep, I'm watching my expenses month to month, so I'll just continue to be as prudent as possible till we sort of round the corner into the first quarter and see what's happening.
And then, like I say, I think this year is probably the first year that we're really, well, for one, we have COVID, but besides that, it's the first year that the new restrictions on overnight accommodations have been in full effect. 2021 will be the same, and so, you know, I'm thinking instead of, you know, if we were to trend out the TRT, we have to take into account that it's trending down without COVID even being a factor.
Right, right.
And so if we were to, you know, I think that if I were to be safe, I would continue that downward trend. So it went from 7.5 to 5.9. And so, you know, we could, it would probably be reasonable to say that we're going to be in the like 4.5 range next year, unless something, you know, really changes. But a lot of this growth has been spurred on by a lot of new hotels and overnight accommodations, but there's not really as much opportunity for that right now. And unless something changes in the regulatory landscape, I don't foresee that there's going to be either. You remember when we spoke with Bill Holst, our chief building official, that he wasn't aware of any new big hotel projects for next year that aren't already in the works.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to take all that into account as well. So I'm thinking, you know, it would be conservative but, you know, still somewhat realistic to go at 4.5 over 2019 for 2021.
Okay.
What does everybody else, anybody else have any qualms if we go that route for TRT? You know, and I think that's, you know, conservative enough, but not overly conservative. So
Yeah.
that would be that. So yeah, like 2,796,000.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone good with that? And then I'll apply the same to the other side, the mitigation side of the TRT. But yeah, I'm thinking that that's the best we can do at the moment. You know, we still have it clear until the end of December, or the second meeting in December, to tweak the budget.
Right, right.
It's more difficult to do once we pass it on to the commission.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll feel better once I see what comes in for the end of this month in October. And we get a look at that distribution. I'm good with the 4.5.
All right. So yeah, that kind of takes into account the downward trend in TRT growth that we've seen over the last few years. Anyway, this will, you know, establish what we have to work with as we get into the expense side of this budget. Do you want to explain what labels are, Elaine?
Yes, we market, and obviously we receive requests for information to the office, and we sell those labels to several of the companies in town who buy them. We did increase our prices in 2019, but this year, due to COVID, we did not charge people for the labels. We decided we'd just give them whatever came in. We gave them the labels for free. We're going to go back to charging them, but I'm estimating, because we did have some people drop off, you know, who couldn't afford the fee early on in the year, but this would be a result of the companies that we feel will want to request and pay for the labels for next year. And they take those labels and they contact those individuals, and they market to those individuals.
Okay. Okay, and then this Canyonlands USA Travel Region, that used to be the name of the nonprofit that ran the Thompson Welcome Center. We should probably
Yep.
just change that account title. But if you remember, we brought them in under the county and got rid of the nonprofit. So that's the contribution from the state of Utah for our contract to run the Thompson Welcome Center, and that's just kind
Right,
of set.
and I don't think that will probably remain the same. On this year's projection, we did have carryover. However, we did have some expenditures, for COVID, I put up plexiglass and they haven't been working as many hours, obviously, because the visitation has been down significantly. So I'll be working to gather a much better number for 2020 when I look at them.
All right, looks like maybe we reseeded in three half a years into 2019.
Yeah, we had carryover from 2000 when we
Oh, yeah.
disbanded the, we had
Oh, yeah, and
carryover.
we also brought their fund balance in.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. That's why there's a difference. So the 85,000 will continue. It's just that I have to see where we are for this year with their salaries and then expenses. So we will have some carryover in a balance there for them, but I'm not sure how much.
Okay. So then, Chris Kaufman, have you calculated interest projections for the Travel Council's PTIF?
If it wasn't in what I originally sent you, then I haven't yet, but I could certainly do that.
Yeah, I can't remember. Anyway, I'll check.
Yeah, I had no idea what number to put in there, so I just left it blank.
Yeah. Well, we did kind of equalize a lot of different investment accounts to more accurately reflect the average balances, and so this might change, but also, our interest rates went down from, whatever they were, 2.2 plus down to like 0.6 or whatever they are now. So we're going to see a major drop in interest if interest rates continue to be extremely low, which they probably will be. Anyway, I'll plug that in once Chris Kaufman and I get to it. Then this 125, that's the grant that we were awarded from the state, right?
Yes, and I'll be doing that marketing not till the second half, just due to their fly markets. But that will happen later, probably in August of next year. But that's the portion of the grant.
Is that just half of it, Elaine?
Yes, it's a combination of, it's half of what I was awarded, but that number also makes up, we were awarded funds as well for a couple of other small programs like Sun Parks and Moab to Monument Valley, and it'll all come out of that same grant funding, that 125, because there's a maximum of 275 that you can ask for. Let me just check to see what, let me see here. You know what, we might want to take, because we might want to take that up because that's going to hit us there too. We might want to take it up to 137.
So what does that include?
That includes the grant funding for local marketing that we're going to do in Chicago and Austin. And then it would be also grant funding that we received for Southern Parks, which is Southern Utah National Parks. We did a program with the other parks. That's part of the funding. And then also Moab to Monument Valley. I'm working with San Juan County. We partnered to do we submitted a request for grant funding. So your total amount awarded can't be more than 275, no matter how it adds up, whether it's my program along with those other plus programs, but that's what it should
So are
look
you going to draw off that this year?
No, I don't believe so. No, it won't.
And so you're only going to draw like 137 next year and then the remainder in 2022?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
All right.
because I have 2 years to use up the grant funding.
Okay.
And this here was Bear grant funding. Now, what do we do with the 95,833 that's coming from the SB 95? That was my question. Does it go in this?
No, it goes in the Economic Development grant budget in Fund 25. So there's a whole nother budget for all of our economic development grants.
Okay, I didn't see that, but this indicated
not in your
this indicated on the spreadsheets it was Bear grant funding for ED.
What was?
That this 3,103 on the detail sheets, it said it was from the Bear grant for ED.
Yeah, that's miscoded.
Okay.
Gotta move that. So yeah, that's gotta go over too, because Bear grant, we have to remember, Bear grant is exact expense reimbursed. And so, we have to have that over in its own grant account so that it balances out to
Right.
zero.
And
And
that'll
so
be
you have to
non-existent.
If we have whatever expenses we have that we're going to charge to the Bear grant and seek reimbursement has to come out of the same fund that the revenue goes into, and that's Fund 5. And
Okay.
it's the same with EDC, Utah Office of Outdoor Recreation, and any of the other economic development grants. SB 95 I put over there also. So
Okay.
just remember that all those are in a different fund. They're in Fund 25, and I've been sending you the account numbers for
Right.
that stuff. Write
Yep.
those down. Remember them.
Yep. Got it. Okay.
Okay, and so this, we don't want to draw anything more from your fund balance because it's already going to be dangerously low from the cash flow perspective. As you know, Elaine, we spend a lot of money before we bring a lot of money in. And so you need that fund balance to cover those. We need that fund balance for cash flow to cover those early year expenses before we start collecting our TRT, the bigger numbers in the spring,
Right.
summer, fall.
So sorry, Chris,
Okay.
what is the fund balance right now? Is there a fund balance?
There is. I can't remember what it is.
Roughly.
Have I sent a financial statement, Elaine?
Pardon me?
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it dropped by almost 100,000 at the end of 2019, between 2018 and 2019, and I think we were around 646 or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
At the
About right.
at the end of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And-
thank you.
And then I think in 2020, we may end up, drawing off of it as well. You can see that I've budgeted to pull another 200,000 out. So by the end of 2020, we'll probably be a little under 500,000, which is okay, but that's about as low as we probably want to go. So I wouldn't budget to pull any more out of the bank.
Okay.
Okay, I think that covers the revenue side. And so we're close, we got 3,020,000 roughly projected in revenue for 2021.
Chris,
Yes.
this is Chris Kaufman. If the PTIF balance stays where it's at now and we see and interest rates stay about where they're at now, then about $1,300 in interest would be where we'd be at.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's see. So then, moving on to our expense side. Event funding, you want to explain that, Elaine?
Yes, that's to support local event sponsors, and we try to encourage local people to, or anyone, I guess, who wants to host an event during the shoulder season. And we've funded that fund has gone to well, the music festival, the concerts in the park. We did a little bit of a different. The board decided to fund those efforts in the last couple of years. So I really didn't want to cut that funding because we still want to encourage whoever might want to sponsor an event starting in December, January, February. We want to encourage that, and then the board will decide if there are other sponsors that want to, come to Moab during other times of the year, because obviously it's to generate PRT. And so I'd like to keep that fund there to support local events.
Okay. Let's see. Now I'm having, hold on, I gotta restart my screen share. I think I tried to pull up too many spreadsheets at once. Try it again. Okay. So moving on to the Film Commission, it appears to me that they dramatically reduced the Film Commission's budget. The city of Moab did. We have an agreement with them to pay 50% of their budget.
Mm-hmm.
And 50% of their budget for 2021, as conveyed by Clint York, their financial guy, it's $78,534.
500, right.
78,534. So that's what I'm going to put in for the budget.
Okay.
And, we might as well hold their feet to the fire about, they send us that as a request, and so that's what we'll pay.
Okay. Yeah, we always
50.
split it.
Okay, so that's down, we normally, this year, they budgeted quite a bit more, and I don't know if they amended that or not. Of course, we're off by 6 months because they run July and we're January to December, but anyway, we've got the higher level budgeted and the lower level budgeted, so it'll come out in the wash somehow, even though we're off by 6 months with them. And then we haven't quite got to salaries and benefits yet, but normally, like in 2019, the sum for salary and benefits was 342,608, just as an indication of probably what we would expect if we returned to being fully staffed next year. Plus, whatever there is going to be in milestones, exemplaries, and increases to benefits costs.
And I'm
So,
down
it'll-
one person, one full-time employee, for the entire second half of this year
Yeah, and so,
that we didn't replace.
but are you going to rehire next year?
I think I'd like to. I just, when I talked to Renee, we were looking at possibly maybe moving that position. It depends on a couple of things. If we move the calls from the office to the MIC, that would be one consideration. The other would be that we take that position and we look at possibly putting it into economic development at some, if we can. That would be the other option. So right now we've left it open until we determine the next steps.
All right, we'll have to talk about that. Maybe send me what you're thinking so that we can discuss it. The problem with economic development that's not travel council related is that we can't pay for it with TRT. It'd have to come out of the general fund budget.
Right, right.
So anyway, once we get our insurance renewals and everything nailed down for benefits, et cetera, we'll start plugging in these employee salary, overtime, and benefits costs. All right, travel, a little bit less than the 5-year average. Equipment and supplies was pretty high in 2019 and pretty low in 2018. What do you charge to that account, Elaine?
We charge anything we buy from whether it's ink or paper. And we did have, with the launch last year in 2019 of the Do It Like a Local, we had a lot more that we had to utilize for supplies and in-house. So plus we were up, just a change in staff required some more organization of office supplies. But I don't see us going back to 2019 spending.
Okay. Utilities might be a little low. I'd set it at least to be the same as 2019,
Okay.
thereabouts. Then phone, I should cover it. Professional and technical.
That would be VisaView. It would be, and that has gone up because we are using SimpleView, which is a CRM. We're going to be putting all of our database. It's actually a database that we're going to be using. CrowdRiff is where we utilize photo pictures that they pull from the internet. We have a contract to utilize CrowdRiff, which has helped a lot. A lot of the photography on our website that we have is from CrowdRiff, things that we would use for social media. And that we started using that in 2019, and that's been a really big benefit for us for marketing.
Okay, and then did you budget for the that dashboard thing that Loves was going to do?
No, you know what? I didn't put that in there. I didn't put, but we certainly could. We could add it. I was probably going to take that out of the other funding, but we could put that in there.
I would say it probably more falls in line with this line item than like
Yeah.
advertising.
Yeah, we can add that. We can definitely add that in there.
So you'll have to get me those numbers. You want to explain what that dashboard is?
Yeah, the dashboard, right now I have to do everything manually, and that is taking all the visa view numbers, all the occupancy numbers, and creating reports on my own, where Love Communications will be able to take our information along with Adara and other outlets to really see the efficacy of our marketing. We can look at, we're going to be able to look at activity on trails, you know, how the weather impacts what we're doing. So the dashboard, and a lot of DMOs are utilizing that type of information, but they're going to be able to upload all of the document, all the statistics, and then prepare a report, which will happen a lot faster than by me trying to dissect all the information and come up with the report. And I would not be able to gather the information, that the added information that they are going to be able to secure from all of these other, you know, TripAdvisor, everyone, and to put into this dashboard. So it'll be a more comprehensive review of everything that we're doing and how our marketing is, you know, how we're impacting, where it's coming from. Do we need to change? We'll be able to react quicker because we're going to have more statistics, and it'll be gathered quicker for us to be able to make those decisions.
Okay. Then moving on, this administrative services, I put that back in. You didn't put anything there, but that, if you recall, for all the funds that are outside of the general fund, but use the services within the general fund, like for instance, payroll, benefits administration, and all that stuff, we calculated, you know, those fees, and so I put that in, or I'm just going to leave them the same.
Does that include IT, anything we would, that comes from IT as well?
IT, all that, I mean, I didn't calculate IT into it. If I calculated IT, it'd be even more money.
Okay.
But, I mean, yeah, it's basically, you know, for the most part, it's going to be the services provided by the clerk's office and personnel services. There are
Right.
others. There's services that I provide. There are services that IT provides. I mean, in reality, it maybe should even be more than that, but I don't really have the bandwidth this year to recalculate all those numbers.
Okay.
You recall, you know, this is a kind of a newer thing, but we can, you know, every little bit that we can help with regard to propping up the general fund helps, you know, reduce the need for property tax increases, and so I feel that's pretty important. All right, moving on to postage. I spotted that there's something that went awry with our mid-year budget amendment. I must have put some number in wrong because now we have a negative budget for that, so I'll have to go in and fix that. I don't know what happened there.
And that's just general mail postage that we would be sending out, you know, from the office.
And so how come it bumped up so much this year versus?
Let's see.
So like in 2019, you only spent $7. 2018 was $240. 2017 was $212. This year so far, you're up to $1,300.
You know, I might have to look at how things are coded because we did more mailings of some mailings this year, earlier in the year. But I'll have to go back and look at what that $1,306 included. So let me see what I can find, because that could be a place where we do take a reduction.
All right, we'll just check in on that. It's not much money, but, something kind of weird going on there.
Right. I'll check the detail to see. There could be something that was miscoded in 2020 year to date, but I'll take a look at that.
Are you gonna keep the cell phones the same,
Yes.
or, okay. Fuel, average fuel over the last 5 years, is about 1,100, 1,200, so that looks good. Supplies, looks pretty good. Throttle down campaign.
I plugged 400 in there because with all of the discussion with UTV, we haven't printed any of the marketing materials that we did a few years ago, but just due to the recent conversation, I felt we might be going back and might need to have those materials printed again.
Okay. And then we've, looks like we've, since 2019 was 10,340 in billboards. Here we have a big jump.
Yeah, those were the two billboard. We did additional billboards in town, north and south, for asking people to stay on the trail, and it was part of our sustainability. So we did those earlier this year, and we also had to replace I-70 billboards. So we're not going to have those expenses of the billboards for this year. As we
This
did
year? You mean
for
next year?
2021, yeah.
So you're gonna be, so 10.5 will cover your billboard contracts for
Yeah,
2021?
we should have, I do have to check with the billboard in Fruta, where I'm pretty sure that number's in there, but that looks like we won't have to replace like the vinyls or anything on our billboards. So that should just be rental costs that we're gonna pay for next year.
Are there any more expenses this year in 2020 for billboards?
We had gotten, I'd have to check to see if we did receive a bill for the south end billboard. And I have to ask, it could be in that 23,200. I want to say that bill came in the beginning of this month, so I have to see if that was coded through the clerk's office. So let me check on that. I think it was for $10,000, I believe, for a full year.
Elaine, this is Quinn. I actually remember that specifically because that check got sent out and then whoever received it shredded it on accident. We had to recut it.
Oh, okay. So it
So,
is.
yeah,
in that
I do
number.
know that we did get that bill.
Okay. Yeah, I remember.
Has it been voided, Quinn?
That's a question I'd have to ask Christy. I think it was, but I'm not 100% sure.
All right, we better double check. I mean, this is like a huge jump up in billboard expenses from the prior year. And so I just want to make sure that there's not, that check that got shredded may not have got. So can you check in on that particular account, that billboard expense?
Yeah, I'll email Christy right now.
Make sure if that one check got shredded, because I'm thinking there's something weird going on there for 2020 year-to-date expenses. All right, insurance is safe to say probably the same as 2019-ish or a little more. Public notices looks good. Again, I got something weird going on with my budget. Gotta fix that. So this is for permits for billboards on state land?
Yeah, that is what that 795 is.
Okay. Inventory, looks like you, are you gonna spend anything on inventory this year?
No, I don't think so. We've got, not to my knowledge, everybody's got computers updated. I don't think so. I mean, I don't foresee anything. If the Vista that comes in, we'll be able to use the desktop. And I think we had paid for a notebook that Matt should have that was from the employee that's no longer with us. So if, we do fill that position, I think we'll be fine.
All right. And is this 1,000 for next year for anything specific or just sort of contingency?
Yeah, just in case, I'm not sure whether or not we'll need anything, but just more of a contingency because I will have the Vista. And then if I do apply to bring that full-time person back, that could require, a possible laptop, we'll see, but hopefully I won't have to use that.
Okay. And then, for training, I guess let's first talk about this year. We've got like $39 charged to it so far. Do you expect to spend any more on training in 2020?
No. Mm-mm.
And then next year, schooling for Melissa.
Yeah, she's actually going to go to her university. She's getting a grant, but she's also going to be going to school, and I factored that in for next year because if she passes, then based on the cost, based on our share, that's what it looks like we'll be paying for her schooling, for her degree.
Okay. Discretionary, a little bit in for discretionary. This MIC contribution for $38,000, did we get a formal request from them for that?
No, I just plugged in the same number that we had agreed upon for this year for 2020. So generally,
Our budget for 2020 is $31,050. I kind of have an issue with this to a degree because it's outside the concept of our agreement with them. And in similar fashion to how we always request from all outside entities who are making budget requests of us a formal proposal and to describe what the money is going to be used for, et cetera. And so I kind of have an issue with CNHA getting money like that without going through the same process that other entities go through when they make budget requests to us. So I'm going to request that you get a hold of CNHA and ask them to create a formal budget request for this money, explaining why they need it. In reviewing the contract that we have with them for operations at the MIC, it doesn't appear to me that this kind of money is involved in that contract. And so this is just almost like on a handshake kind of stuff. And so I want to...
And that's been, as long as I've been at the Travel Council, we've allocated funding, and that's the part that goes toward the salaries. And then there's another request to cover the restrooms, which is separate from this.
So anyway, yeah, I just want something more formal.
Okay, well, I'll reach out to Roxanne and to Sharon and see if they can provide. I was supposed to do that and then things just fell through the cracks. I will see if I can get them to put that together, and then also to provide us with updated financials for 19, 18 and 19, so you can take a look at that. I did fax over or scanned over some stuff to you.
Because, you know, the memo that I saw indicated that they were running in the red at the information center.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know. I guess it just kind of bothers me because there's obviously a lot of other retail businesses right on Main Street that don't have as ideal a location as they have, who are private enterprises running in the black, making money.
Mm-hmm.
How is it that they're in the red?
Well, and they just got
With such an ideal
$40,000.
location.
They just got $40,000 of funding from the Utah Office of Tourism, I think through the CARES Act. So because Roxanne was calling and asking for support, she came to me and I, obviously said we have no money. But she went to the Utah Office of Tourism and they did fund her with an additional, with $40,000 from their funding.
So it looks to me like they've already received $31,000 from us, and then they got another 40 from the state?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it still doesn't really answer my question of how they could be running in the red when they have one of the most ideal retail locations in the entire city.
Well, I know that their visitation has been down, and plus their retail store was closed for several months when we were essentially closed. So I know that
but that memo you sent me though was from before COVID.
Yes, yeah, right.
They were already in the red before COVID. So I'm just not really getting it. But anyway, enough about that.
Well, I'll request a formal proposal and then their financials.
Yeah, okay. Okay, FAM tours, want to explain what the FAM tours are?
Yes, FAM tours are familiarization tours for journalists or anybody coming into photographers, journalists. We have travel agents, anybody that will come in for whether it's to write about Moab, to give us any type of exposure. And we've hosted people from China, from India, from Canada, Germany, all the countries. So that's basically, that's what that covers. And we had a lot of them in the Utah Office of Tourism really ramped up in 2019. We had quite a few, and of course, we were supposed to have more this year, but we cut out all the FAM tours. So I'm sure that they will we'll be moving back to those as we try to move back into, getting some focus in international markets to help, or even domestic markets to help with encouraging travels. But that's what that money, and that money covers hotels, because the hotels years ago, they used to give comp the rooms, but now we have to pay for the rooms, pay for meals, pay for any type of expenditure to get them into the parks, pay, if we send them out on a rafting trip, or we have to pay, the travel council has to pay for all of that.
Okay. And then this advertising one, we'll revisit, I think. It's probably pretty low, but when we get to the end of the expenses, we'll compare what we have for expenses with our revenue and see how it's shaking out. What is Watts?
I believe that's our phone system, I want to say.
Okay. And then this other postage line.
That's to mail the travel planners out to visitors.
Okay. And then are you going to mail 75% of what you mailed out in 2019?
I would hope so. We've had increases. Let me just see. We've been averaging recently. Let me just do a quick calculation here. times six, oops. I think it costs us almost 90 cents to mail our travel planner, and we're averaging roughly 500 a week. It's going back up. But if I do that calculation, it's 26,000. I feel good with that number, 30,000.
Okay, travel shows, sort of similar. Looks like you're projecting a decrease from 2019.
Yeah,
good
I'm
with
not
that?
sure. Some of them might be virtual, except for IPWS. You know, those are somewhat a little later in the year next year. So I wanted to plug something in there just in case.
Is it, okay, is it the same with the international travel
Yeah,
shows?
we're not. I just plugged in international because I'm not sure, obviously, with COVID where things are going to go. But if I don't attend in person, oftentimes I have to have some type of expenditure for the international travel show, whether it's if UOT goes and I have to pay for, a visual setup that.
Okay, yeah, we need to hurry up. We're getting behind here on our schedule, so just checking in. I don't need too much detail.
Okay.
Let's see, so then it looks like you're got 3,000 budgeted for UTV training.
Yeah, just in case we have to train everyone about UTVs, I just put that in there just in case.
All right. There's something, this is another thing for you to check, Quinn. It looks like we brought in 125,000 into an expense account.
Yeah, I finished and billed UOT. That was for 2019, the second half, I think, or 8, I can't remember. No, 2000, I can't remember. But they owed us the 125,000, and I finished up all the documents.
It's just that got receipted into the expense account instead of the revenue account.
Oh, got it. Okay, yeah.
So that needs to get moved up to the revenue account. It got receipted into the expense account.
That's right.
So that needs to be fixed. That's another journal entry, Quinn, that needs to be moved. And again, something weird happened with my budget amendment. These need to be fixed. So the swag for the FAM tours looks about average. Brochures are close to average. Membership fees are a little less than 2019, or 4,157 less. You're gonna drop some of those memberships.
You know what? I'd like to take that number back up.
Is it gonna have to be close to what it was in 2019?
Yeah, I would say if we budget the 19,000. Yeah.
And then this Canyonlands region, what's that?
Well, that doesn't exist really. That's the.
Okay, so I guess we should check and see what's getting coded to it, because there's $962 that's been coded to it for some reason.
I'll look at the detail.
All right. And then Sun Park, Scenic Byway, and then here again we've got this another contribution to CNHA.
Right. That's
or,
restrooms.
Which I think the city should be paying for, at least splitting with us, personally. So when you request your, from CNHA a budget request, make sure they include this also.
Okay. We've gone to the city and they have gone to the city, and the city has never agreed to pay anything or split cost toward the restrooms. But
Wow.
we can revisit that again.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that we need to get a better grasp on what we're sending to CNHA, because it doesn't comply with our agreement with them. You know, it's just all, and there's no formal budget request that comes in for any of it. And so I want to tighten that all up.
Okay.
And then this, from here on down, is what we need to put in for the Thompson Welcome Center. The majority of it's going to be salary and benefits. And so,
Mhm.
you know, this amount that we plug in here is going to have to, you know, equal roughly 85,000. And it probably will once we get our salary and benefits numbers plugged in.
Right.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the expense side. Let's see what the balance is. So equals, so here's our revenue. And then we'll subtract that from this number, but I'm going to add 400,000 just to kind of roughly approximate salary and benefits. So that means that you haven't budgeted, you know, given what we've got in terms of revenue, what we projected for revenue, you haven't budgeted 706,000. So that 706,000 is going to have to be plugged in somewhere.
Well, I
Better
guess.
than being in the whole 706,000.
Yes, no kidding. Do you want to put it?
Anyway,
Do we want to put it up into advertising?
well, why don't you just think about it, and you know, we can like revisit. We can either plug it into advertising, or and maybe some of that should actually go back into building your fund balance back up, since it
Yeah,
got.
well, that's kind of what I would, yeah. I mean, I'd feel better if we split it.
All right.
And we split half to the fund balance and half to advertising.
All right. Okay.
Hey, Chris, it's Quinn. Just a
Go ahead.
side note, I heard back from Christy, and she said that check did get voided in Cassell, so that's not in Cassell, the 10,000.
All right. Okay. That's the end of our travel council budget. Anybody have any questions, comments, or anything before we move on? Still needs some work to get it zeroed out, but I think we covered most of it there.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody, for your input.
Thanks, Elaine. All right, next up is personnel services. Let me stop this screen. And pull up that budget. Hopefully this one will be a lot faster.
It should be.
All right, so this is HR and payroll for the most part. And so well, I guess, Renee, first off, maybe, discuss what you're thinking with regard to positions.
Sure. So in 2019, for the 2020 budget, we had planned on, before I got payroll, planned on having the personal services specialist. We had budgeted for a full-time position. And then in February, made the change with payroll coming over under my department. So I would have technically three employees in the department. And with the start of COVID, I gave up the personal services position so that we could fund Matt's IT support tech at full time. And right now, I don't see the need for the third personal services position. I think that the payroll coordinator does have enough time in between payroll weeks to kind of help me with some of those other duties. I was hoping for that person. So I'd like to give it a full year, kind of hopefully a normal year in air quotes there, with just me and payroll to see how that all goes.
Okay.
So no request for that third personal services position to come back for 2021.
Okay.
Wow. That's cool.
Thanks, Renee, for taking on that challenge.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. It might be in 2022. I'll ask for 2 people. We'll see.
All right.
We also don't have the space. I mean, we could squeeze another person in the treasurer's in that back room, but I think one person back there is more than enough. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Yeah, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Chris. I was just going to go on to the next one. But
Yeah, just go ahead and you can just review your budget here with everybody.
Sure. So under subscriptions and memberships, I'm kind of taking that back up to what I asked for in 2020. The $125 is for the IPMA HR, the Utah group. It's a public management, public sector HR group. And then TechNet for $550 is our salary survey kind of sharing group there. Public notices, all of the public notices for job postings in the general fund come out of that account for me. Travel, I took back up to where I wanted it in the beginning of 2020, hoping to actually get out and get some travel and going to some conferences in 2021. Office supplies, I've kept just pretty standard across the board. Equipment maintenance, I didn't put anything in here, Chris. I thought it was for my printer contract, but that's all been coded to office supplies and expenses, all the Les Olson. So I just took it out.
Okay.
It looks like in 2019 we didn't have anything, and then there was some older ones. So professional services is where I code drug tests, background checks, and I took it up a little higher than what I asked for in 2020 because I'd like to do a little bit more job advertising when I post job postings out in like Indeed and ZipRecruiter and sites like that. It usually wants a little bit of a budget so I can push those to the top of the list essentially for views. Cell phone allowance, I'm going with the $60 one. So as the director, I'm the only one getting a cell phone allowance. So that's a little bit of a drop from 2019. Special department supplies are just kind of random things that come up. The milestone pins, sometimes retirement plaques. I think I had something else in there, in my note. Oh, that's all I have. Some things just come up here and there, nothing too extravagant. Inventory for 2021, I put it at 500. We got Cassie had to get a new computer when she came on. We were going to try and use the payroll computer and it crashed straight away. So she's got a new computer, and then me and Matt chatted. I think mine can go until 2022. So put that one at 500. And then schooling, I did go a little bit higher than what I asked for in 2020, just because I do have another person I'd like to get some training for me and Cassie out there. So.
All right, and so, yeah, and Quinn, budgeted quite a bit to actually bring Cassell.
The Cassell.
And so that would benefit you as well.
Mm-hmm.
Having them come down. I don't know entirely what the cost is, but, you know, if we have them actually physically come here, you know, we're gonna have to pay for all the overhead associated with them, you know, renting hotels and everything like that. But it's
Yep.
pretty necessary. And, you know, we've got some, I don't know how you're working things these days, but, you know, it doesn't seem like we've ever really got the HR module fully.
Correct. Yep. I'd like to get the.
Doing a lot of work out of payroll.
Yeah, it's the HR module in Cassell is not up to its full capacity. It could be doing a lot for us. I've gotten and added some things to it because that's where I pull the employees 1095s from. And we haven't had to do that in the past, but this year GBS won't be doing the 1095s for us. So that's where I can pull those from is the HR module. So I'd like to get in there and get in that a lot more.
All right. Okay. Anybody have any comments on personnel services budget? Okay.
Great.
We'll call it good.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Renee. All right. And next up is airport operations. Let me pull that up real quick.
Hello, hello.
Okay. Give me just a sec to get set up here.
Did you receive the spreadsheet I sent you, Chris? Were you able to use that?
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to pull it up in just a minute here.
Yep. I just wasn't sure if you had already plugged it in or not, so we can reference it.
All right. This one you sent me.
Yep, cool. All right, so what I have, 2020 projections, I plugged in, you know, again, it's kind of a little bit of the Christmas list, but a lot of it's pretty justifiable. We did show an increase in budget, and we can fine tune that more to figure out where we can make cuts. Some of the items for a higher number is just either because of contingency or potential maintenance issue, but we'll go through that. So I tried to provide as much detail as possible and then look at averages as well.
All right. Yeah, there are quite a few that you've plugged in that are well above the average and the 2019 actuals. So I guess we can just start going down the list here. You've almost, let's see, so the request for subscriptions, are you expecting to subscribe to more of something? 41% increase over 2018.
Yeah, and I can't, for whatever reason, I can't. Oh yeah, it's on your screen, duh. Actually, I'm gonna find it on mine, then that way I can look at my notes a little bit better. Bear with me a second here.
Yeah, it's
So I did additional opportunities for, I think so AAA membership and UAOA, those are ones that we will need. I'm trying to remember, because I don't recall the exact costs. I mean, I'd be comfortable probably putting that at 450 or 500 again. I just couldn't remember why I pumped it up.
you were at 568 in 2019, so I just recommend matching that roughly.
Okay, that works.
Triple AE memberships are $350 a piece. And then
Oh, there we go.
$50 for UAOA.
It's only 50 for UAOA?
I think
Oh,
so.
that seems really low. Okay.
So I guess my question is, what additional expense would there be in 2021 versus 2019?
Right. And that's what I was trying to, so if it's 350, so that's 700 and then plus 50 for UAOA, so that's 750.
Yeah, that's why last year it was 750.
And that was different in 2019? Something was different?
I don't know. Well, maybe they only had one for Judd. So I'm including Tammy on that because she's been doing more training.
We had 2 AAAE memberships in 2019.
You did. So then it must have been just budgeted wrong.
Maybe it didn't get coded to that line, I don't know. Because we only had 568 in actual expenses.
Okay. Yeah, that's possible.
All right, anyway. Public notices. Is there any reason why you bumped that up?
RFQs. We're going to have the Red Tail RFQ in 2021.
Yeah, these other ones are generally for RFQs also, right?
Well, public notice, yeah. Well, let's see. So that has to do with like advertising in the paper. And then plus all of our projects, we have to advertise, although that is covered through the project itself.
Well, yeah, but we don't budget net. We have to budget gross expenses and revenue, and so we can never budget what's going to be washed out, if that makes any sense. We have to budget full expenses, full revenue.
Yep, for sure.
So even though it's covered by the grant, we still have to budget the expense of it.
Yep. So I put in FBO lease, Blue Hills Road, and SRE. Those are all 3 that we're going to have to advertise for.
Yeah. Then your travel looks like we had quite a bit of travel in 2019 at 12,000.
Right. So
Your
I cut
average-
that down. Yep. I cut that down. Just ARF training is a requirement. And it depends on if we can save costs if we find a local training opportunity, which we were able to do this year for most of our folks. But I need to budget to see if we go to Dallas for training if we're not successful in finding something more local and regional. So that's what I did there. And then UAOA, I don't know what they're going to do. They've been canceling everything all year, but it's possible they may add their conference back next year. And then, so I was trying to be fairly conservative on it, but.
Okay.
Most of our travel are required training. It didn't happen this year because of COVID, but normally I go to Salt Lake at least 1 day a year for wildlife management. It's required training. So we still do have some travel expenses that we didn't have this year just because things were canceled. So we're just anticipating having to do those things again in 2021.
Okay. Office supplies looks, yeah, it's probably right. 2019, you're at 1871. The average is 1,200, but it looks like it's trending up a bit.
We're actually over, we're $73, right now we're $73 over on our office supply budget. So that 1,500 would probably be right on.
Maybe you are. I don't know. Right now, when I ran this report, you had 1,200 year to date, and the budget's 1,400. So you're still about 200 left.
We keep our internal spreadsheet of invoices, so it may not have been paid yet.
Okay.
That's probably where she's coming up with that number.
Yeah, this is off of our internal sheet that we keep track of our invoices. So every time I send Christina an invoice, I enter it into our spreadsheet. So I have a up-to-date current look at what our funding is.
All right, moving on to janitorial supplies. This is a pretty big increase from any past year actual by quite a bit. It's 170% more than average and 57% more than 2019. You want to explain that request?
You know, I was just thinking, our numbers will, I'm hoping we'll get back to closer to what 2019 was. With that said, I mean, maybe we could look at closer to 5 or 5,500. I was just thinking, I wasn't sure because of additional cleaning supplies if we're going through more, which we have been. So Tammy, any thoughts on that?
I think there's a little bit of wiggle room there. I think we could do 55 or 6,000.
Well, that's still quite a bit more.
Yeah.
That's a lot more than 2019, and
yeah,
even more.
We have increased use of our buildings out here. Every time there's that steady line of traffic coming into town, they all stop here at the airport to use the bathrooms. So we have an increased use of paper towels, toilet paper, and then with COVID, the increase of sanitation.
I think it's important for the group to realize and understand also that we cannot use a 5-year average for our budget preparation. We really need to look at probably 2019. I mean, 2020, we can't even really use either. 2018 and 2019 are really the only years because of the growth we've seen. And that's going to be more realistic to actual.
All right, so the average is 5,000 between 2018 and 2019.
Yeah, in 2018, we were only open for what, 7 months?
That's a good
So
point.
for instance, 2019, you spent $4,461.
But our projected growth in flights is what kind of stemmed that increase. But like I said, I think we could pull that down to 5,500 or 6,000.
Well, let's go with 55 and try and see if we can keep within budget there, because that what you're requesting is an increase of 57% over 2019, and I don't know that we're going to see a 57% increase in.
Sure, I was kind of ballparking. Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, I'd be comfortable with 5,500, honestly. We just got to keep.
All right, let's go with 55. All right, and so then this is a new line item, vending supplies. So you purchased the vending machines out there.
Right. So
how did you come up?
Yeah, I came up with the 8,000 based on what we have spent for the quarter that we've owned it, just on product. So that $8,000 is to buy product, which when we sell them, we'll get more revenue back.
Yeah, and so in terms of the revenue side of that, how much do you think you'll bring in?
I don't know. We don't have enough numbers yet to figure it out. We had a decent.
Well, hopefully at least 8,000.
Oh yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, we're making a little bit of money. It's more of a service, but we are making a profit off of the product, obviously.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Yeah, we should definitely cover our costs.
All right, I'm just gonna mark that to remind myself to go back to the vending machine revenue line item and adjust it to at least match the expenses.
Right.
Okay, so with water and sewer, that's
So I did bump that up. Tammy, you're going to know more about this than I did, but on my notes, did increase state testing. I think we pay, how much do we pay a month right now? Is it 500?
Yeah, we pay $500 a month for to have a trained certified what's it called? Water operator. And so that's that expense. And then the chemicals for treating the water, and then maintenance of the equipment. And then we do have to do monthly testing and now yearly testing. And that yearly testing is, gosh, what was it, like $500 or $600? Monthly testing, $15 for the tests, and then we've been averaging $18 for the shipping on that.
So to cut to the chase, we don't need to get too detailed so that we can keep on
So
track.
bottom line is this year, with our aging water system, we had 2 major water line breaks. And we don't have that showing yet. I'm still waiting for invoices, but we've had to hire equipment to come out and dig those up so that we could repair them. So we're looking at, we're adding, we've added 4 hangers out here. So we have much more water line out here that we have to maintain and fix when it breaks. So there's just that added expense with that.
Okay, so it's roughly in line with the average of 2018 and 2019, so I'm good with that. Then electrical repairs. 2018 you had 994, 2019 698, so that's probably reasonable. I guess you don't necessarily know, do you? Or do you know what you're? All right, so it's just kind of like.
Yeah, that's one of those random ones where we could have a lightning strike and it wipe out all of our, one year it just wiped out one antenna on the building. It didn't wipe out all of them. So it's kind of things like that.
All right, and then the line item below it, are those both kind of like the same thing, or is there really a distinction between electrical repairs and electrical component repairs?
There's not, and that was kind of one of the ones we talked about combining. I don't know why was ever listed as 2 separate.
There are a few. I'd love to eventually just spend some time cleaning this up because there's some things that we could consolidate, be more efficient. Then there's other line items I'd love to reuse the line item if we can. Between the revenue and the expenses, there's just things that don't really make sense to me that we could change and make just the budget better.
All right, well, why don't we combine these right now? The average on this second one is $300.
Maybe we put the total at 1,200.
Well, let's go, if we do 1,300 here and 0 that one,
Chris,
I think that'll cover.
Can you share that? Can you put that up on the screen?
It's on the screen. What do you mean?
Oh.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, we just can't do anything. So Tammy, what I'm doing is
it's not showing up on mine.
Oh, you don't have the screen share?
No.
It might be something that you have, you just need to click on a different view.
Does everybody else see the screen? Shows that it's still. What's that?
Yeah, I do.
I see it.
All right. Yep, I got it now. Sorry, folks. It's my bad.
I have it.
All right, and so next up, okay, so next up we see a big increase in hangar maintenance.
Right. So I increased this as something that we should consider, especially if we are looking at possibly renewing Red Tail or not. The county owns the hangars. The hangar doors have had issues over the years where the cables just wear out or break, and then you can't open and close the door. So I put some funding in there to to get them fixed if we need to. I mean, it is, you know, a cost we could consider cutting, but, you know, I don't know, Tammy, with the red tails fix that we were needing to do this year, how much that costs roughly.
Yeah, I have not gotten invoices on that yet. I keep bugging Archie about it. But we had to replace cables on hangar A, and then replace a door operator on our hangar. So I would imagine we're gonna surpass what we had budgeted for this year, which was what, 5,000?
Yeah, well, year to date, I'm
Where's
looking
some of
at
the big
like,
problems?
yeah, year to date, it's 551.
Yeah,
Is it in our contract with Red Tail that we do all those kinds of repairs?
yeah.
That's a major structural repair if it's a door. Yeah, that's something we have to pay for.
Pains of being a landlord.
And so the majority of the reason is for that increase is the $12,000 door repair?
Yeah, it'd be for, I think, both hangars. So we could cut that down. I mean, I'd be comfortable maybe dropping it to, you know, I put 6,500 for 2020 projection. I just don't know. We don't know what the cost is to fix it.
So, but I guess it seems like you're budgeting for that in both years, this year and next year.
Right. Unless we did one this, well, see, what we're thinking of doing is doing a different, getting rid of the cables altogether, and you use this strap system. That's where it's expensive. So if we did both hangars, that's why I put in 12,000. If we did one maybe next year, one the year after that, I'd be comfortable closer to 6,500, maybe 7,000.
All right, so I'm just trying to make sure that we're not double budgeting.
Yep.
Because it looks like you're budgeting for one door this year and two next.
Well, the door this year was just to fix it. And plus we had to fix our own ARF doors, which we had to fix 2 of them.
All right, so what do you feel comfortable with then for 2021?
Tammy, do you think $7,000 would help cover at least one hangar? I'd be, you know, it would be nice because we need to cut some costs. I think 6,500, 7,000 would be better. That way, if we do have a maintenance issue, we can take care of it. And if there's something that we do want to do one hangar, we should have the ability to do that. And then we can bump the other one.
Yeah, I would feel comfortable with cutting that.
All right, it's cut, 7,000.
Okay,
Deal's
thanks,
done.
Chris.
I
Yep, that works.
think there might be ways we can work out something with Red Tail, so. Maybe
Yep.
we can
All right.
look at-
Grounds maintenance is going up, it looks like, from actuals. Do you expect, for instance, to have your costs increase 42% over 2019?
Well, it depends on what work we want to get done. So what I have a list of items that we could do things, but you know, there's sidewalk that we'd like to get done and other things, but just depends.
There's sidewalk that we have to get done under ADA requirements. We just have a section of sidewalk that's completely missing, as well as some add-ons that we need to make to be ADA compliant with FAA standards for service animals and people with disabilities.
Okay, and then kind of similar with weed control, you're budgeting for 211% more than 2019 and 56% more than average.
Yeah, and a lot of that's just the cost. Cost of things are going up. Chemicals are costing more.
You know what? Let's
200.
cut that to 500, Chris.
All right. Fire equipment maintenance, also quite a bit more than actuals. Is there something more that you're gonna buy than you normally do or have in 2018, 2019? I mean, seems, in 2019, you're at,
Are we due to replace
ahead.
anything, Tammy?
We generally have to replace a couple extinguishers a year. But that's one where we could stay at the same as 2019, I think.
Okay, I'd be comfortable with that. Maybe if we did 500 or.
At one point we were where everything was all due at the same time, but now I've got everything staggered. So
Okay.
we're not stuck doing everything all at once.
Drop it to 550?
Yeah.
Well, you spent 520 this year already, and then
Yeah, I think
last year you
600 is fine.
spent 303. So all right, I guess.
Yeah,
all
because
right.
it's kind of a one-time deal. They come out and do all of the extinguishers, and then we get a testing done. So whatever we spent this year, I would feel comfortable with next year.
All right.
Aside from 5% increase,
And
just because.
that was a hard one for us, Chris, because we don't, with state fire, they're not really good with giving us the invoices. They kind of go to the courthouse and then we never see them again. So that was kind of tough to figure out.
All right. Well, you could touch base with Christy on how that gets broken out. Okay. Runway, taxi, ramp maintenance.
Look at the details on this one.
Yeah, I mean, okay, let's see. So we've got, hold on. Span this notes thing here. Crack seal 5,000, electrical vault fix 6,000, air-filled paint 2,500, runway light replacement 1,000. So all those things necessary next year.
Tammy had mentioned the electrical vault fixes. We don't have any. I don't know. Can you explain that, Tammy?
This is one of those where this is kind of a contingency more than anything because you never know what's going to break or need to be replaced. For instance, one runway light can be $400 to replace. So the crack sealing is definitely one you can plan on. As far as electrical vault fixes and lights, those are hard to predict just because we don't know what's going to break on any given day. But the things like crack sealing and paint, we just bought 40 gallons of paint, and that was about $600. So these are all things that are requirements for us to stay in compliance with FAA.
Yeah. How much of this do you figure is contingency?
Let's see.
Versus what you're really planning to do?
5,000.
I'd probably just say the electrical vault. The rest
Yeah,
of it,
probably the 6,000 is more contingency than anything. And then what was it? What did you have on there? 1,000 for runway lights.
Yeah, that'd be replacing 2 lights roughly, maybe a little bit more, maybe 3.
The benefit to usually when a light is broken, it's because somebody has broken it. And if we can figure out who does that, then we can charge them for it. But if we can't figure out who did it, then we eat that cost.
All right. Well, tell me the value that you need in there minus contingency.
8,500. Well, yeah.
Well, let's drop it down to 10 and leave a little contingency, but, you know, if something is an emergency and we need to spend money on it, there's a process for that.
True. Okay.
And we can always amend the budget to account for it. But I just hate leaving really large sums of contingency in budgets when we have a process in place for dealing with emergency purchases and whatnot. So, you know, and I say this often through these budgeting processes, that if you, whatever money you're budgeting is money that nobody else can budget for.
Yep.
In the general fund. And so you're pulling those resources from anybody else being able to use them. And so I like to keep contingency at reasonable levels, you know.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay, so this electricity looks like it's pretty much on par with 2019. So that I think's good. 4% increase, which is reasonable. Propane looks like about a 25% increase from 2019.
Tammy thinks it's going to be a cold winter.
Well, for propane, we are already, I think, over budget for this year.
Well, I mean, not for what's in it, Cassell, when I ran this report last week, but when I ran this report, you were at 3,300 almost, and your budget's 5. So, I mean, we could leave it at 5. That's
our
not a
budget.
big.
Oh, okay. I have the wrong number for that.
Yeah, we'll start using, you know, November, December, we'll start using more gas. So that's what I figured.
All right, that's where I was off. I have the wrong numbers. Well, no. Okay, yeah, I had 3,500 in our budget.
We could maybe put 4,500.
It might have been amended up a little bit. I mean, 45 would probably cover it because that's even giving you an increase over 2019 by quite a bit.
I'm comfortable with that.
5,000 might be all right. Well,
we'll see. I mean, if we, like I say, if we have to amend it, we
sure
can amend small things like that pretty easily.
Wear more jackets.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for
4,500 would be fine.
Trash pickup in 2019 was almost 12,000, 11,745.
So yeah, you can see the math that I did on that one.
Uh-huh.
So I thought that number was probably justifiable. And then you might have another pickup or two, but.
All right. Then average with miscellaneous looks fairly reasonable there. Telephone is.
I just don't know what it is. We don't see those bills.
Yeah, so 2019 you had 2,800. You're up to 2,300 so far this year. I would say 3,000 would cover it probably.
Okay, that's fine.
So that's a little bit of an increase, like 4% increase, but I don't see why it would go up much more than that.
Right.
Fuel, you're actually budgeting less than you spent in 2019 for fuel. Do you want to, is that okay, or do you?
Tammy, what are your thoughts? I mean, you can see I did $60 per month per vehicle. I didn't, for some reason, I didn't add the vehicles, but we are, I mean, we're getting another truck this year. And then if we get the loader next year, I don't know, maybe it is low.
Yeah, we should bump that up.
Well, let's go a little bit higher just to cover at least what you spent in 2019.
Yeah.
ARP expense is up about 17–18% relative to the average and 2019.
That's due to our turnout gear is expiring. So and then we had So we had to do 2 sets this year, myself and then Andy, because he's new, so he didn't have gear. And then next year we'll have to do another 2 sets. And that's roughly 3,000 a piece.
All right.
That's where
And
that
then,
increase comes from.
then your cell phone allowance looks like it's quite a bit more actually than 2019. Have you added a cell phone to?
No, but I did the math here. We have 3 people, like 3 at 90 and 3 at 45. So I was like, that is what it was.
Yeah, I'd have to look and see who all Renee has. That was just kind of going off of my memory.
Okay. Hold on.
That's one where I think you guys could answer that question a little bit better than I could.
Maybe we have one person that's not getting any. That's possible.
Well, our part-time people would not be getting any.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I only did 3 and 3. So you, Mason, and me as ASCs do 90 a month, and the other 3 would get 45.
I guess I'll have Renee double check that figure.
That one, Chris, is whatever it is for this year, it would be the same.
Yeah.
All right. We'll check on that.
It hasn't changed.
So then vehicle maintenance gone up quite a bit.
I just kind of threw in a number based on.
Yeah, and that's another one where it comes to just being busier. We're using our vehicles way more than we ever have in the past.
Still seem, I mean, it's the same budget, but it still seems kind of high relative to, like your average over 5 years is 3,000, but in 2019, for instance, 4,300.
I'd be comfortable with 5.
All right, I think that would probably cover you, even if you added another vehicle into the mix.
Sure. We could make it work.
And then inventory, looks like you're not expecting to spend much in inventory. 2020.
Well, oh, did I do? I must have done something wrong on that. What did I do here? Because when you look at the details,
Yeah, what happened there?
I don't know. I think it was a typo.
0 or something.
So 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think I meant to put 10,000.
All right. Well, too late. So you've got FOD Razor for 3,500, and then generator for 3,000. Storage container 2,500. Gear locker 1,000. Yeah,
And a lot of those
10,000.
are, yeah, those are one-time expenses. So once we have those, I mean, it's a nice to have, not a need to have. So if we needed to cut, I would say we can cut some of that. We're just trying to get some things and equipment so that makes our operation a little bit smoother.
All right. Well, once we get to the nearer to where we have a bottom line on the general fund,
Yep.
I'm just going to highlight that might be an area that we have to revisit and cut.
Sure. Yep, I understand that.
And then schooling, you know, almost, you doubled the schooling expense relative to 2019 actuals, and it's 47% above average.
Right. One of those costs, and you can look at the details. We'll be due for our triennial exercise, which is a full scale exercise. So I did plug in 2,500 for that. It's only every 3 years, but that'll help cover, you know, costs to hold the event.
Yeah. Then ARP training, 1,500 times 6. 2,500 new ARP. So this is contingency. This 2,500 is, what does that mean? Like
Right.
new ARP?
Yeah,
Like
that
let-
would be, yeah, that would be if like, say someone quit, and we had to get a new person to get them trained. And that's a low estimate. That's just the training right there. It doesn't include travel.
All right. Well, I would say let's cross that bridge when we come to it. What is law workshop?
So one thing, so AAAE does all of these, you know, training, and they've been doing a lot more online. One of the things I mentioned to Chrissy was having her or somebody from the attorney's office attend a law workshop. They're $450 each. And so it's like a 3-day seminar where you learn about airport law and whatnot, and contracts and a variety of other things. She thought it'd be really interesting, and I would recommend it.
And so that would be for somebody in the attorney's office?
Right. So I put 2 on there. You could cut it to 450. Just have one person do it.
Yeah. And then
Yep, DigiCast is our online training, which helps us with our Part 139 FAA requirements. So something I implemented this year so that all staff can receive that training online.
And then what other AA? mean?
Again, it could be other training that's available. We didn't specify anything, but it'd be, you know, similar to the law workshop. It could be another training that we're like, oh, that would be really good.
The airport security coordinator, there's construction management.
But it's, right now, it's basically another contingency number.
Well, it's not a contingency. We can't do these trainings if we don't have the money. There's
you don't
a
even-
list of trainings
What?
that we need to acquire, but can't
Well,
plan them.
we've budgeted for the AAAE already,
That's the
so you've got this
membership.
other.
That's
What?
just for membership. So the
I know,
cost
but
for, yeah.
900, what is this 900 for specifically?
I mean, I could go through the training program and find 1 or 2. I just wanted it open in case we go, hey, that would be really good to do. So like I said,
Okay, and then what's local training?
There is none.
we could, there is not, I thought there was so even the fire training that we're doing this weekend, is there a cost to that, Tammy?
Well, that's just fire training. That has nothing. The trainings through AAAE are airport operations specific. They don't necessarily have to be ARF. That's where this airport has lacked. Our operations specialists have absolutely no operations training besides what I've taught them. So these are very airport specific trainings that our staff need to have.
I get that.
Trainings.
We're not talking about AAAE right now. We're talking about the local training that he has, that has 500 on it. What is that?
Is there anything local that's provided? That's what I'm going with. Is this regional fire school? Is there a cost associated
There's
with it?
no cost to that.
Okay.
That's
Where do you
provided.
guys get your CPR and that?
Oh, that's a good point.
That that is done in-house. One of our operations people are an instructor. So that
Okay.
cost, we do have to pay that cost to American Heart Association. The county has actually saved money because most of us are EMTs and run with an agency. And so the agencies we work for have paid for that in the past.
So if I take some of this contingency out, but not all of it, like say, for instance, I leave in the other training at 900, then that brings it down to 12,050, and that's
Okay.
including some contingency.
Yeah, I'd be fine with
Okay.
that. Yeah.
All right. That's the last one. Anybody have any comments on the airport operations budget before we move on? Okay, we're gonna call this one good. Thanks, Andy and Tammy.
Thanks,
Thanks, Chris.
appreciate
Thanks,
it.
everybody.
All right. Next up is Sand Flat, so give me just a minute to bring that spreadsheet up. And Andrea also sent in a budget narrative, which I emailed out to the board. Okay, Andrea, are you with us?
I think so. I think I unmuted. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me get your, okay, I have both on the screen now.
So let's start off then with the revenue side. So it looks
Okay.
like you're projecting pretty significant decrease from 2019. You're projecting 87% of Sand Flats fees, and that 3311.
Well, you know, I don't know how the spring is gonna go. So
Where are you? I mean, let's say, have you done any kind of analysis of where we're at relative to 2019 from
Yes.
like June on? Like, let's
Yes.
just take out the closure period and
Well,
go
we're
from,
at-
and
Well, overall, right now we are at about 55% of normal right now.
but
in
that's
our revenue.
including the time that we were closed, right?
Yes.
So have you run any numbers on like June, July, August, September?
Yes.
How are these relative
Well-
to 2019?
Well, I could pull up my, let me pull up my remit sheet while we're talking. I know we're up. For September, as an example, we were up we were up a third for September over last year. So as example, we usually last year we brought in 60,000 in September, and I should say 130%, and we brought in 90,000. And then July and August we were up as well, but not as much money because we don't bring in as much on those months. Let me.
So I guess what I'm saying is, it seems to me like 87% seems really low, perhaps.
Let me grab it here. Yeah, I mean, what I was doing was I was taking the 5-year average, and that's what I was using to come up with that number. And then I realized that I had it at 580. Wait a minute, I've lost your screen now. Hold on. I had it at 580 originally, and then I realized that the online reservation fees were included in it. So I took that out and brought it down to 550 because the 30,000 is down below under Sand Flats fees online. So the 5-year average is 580,000. And so that's what I was using.
Yeah.
So yeah, it might be low, but, I mean, I don't know. Maybe we'll, I'm just kind of, that's what I used.
Yeah. It seems low. Your online fees are budgeting 93% of 2019. And the other fees are 87% of 2019. And we did split that out, from so there's a change from the averages, but you don't think that it would be safe to at least budget for 100% of 2019? Because we're basically skipping 2020 as a year of growth. And so if we budget, a totally flat projection from 2019 to 2020, that's like 3 years of staying exactly the same. You don't think that's reasonably conservative?
Taking what we made in 2019,
Yeah.
or
Let's say we said we're going to budget 2021 at 100% of 2019. I mean, to me, that seems conservative based on how we've come out of the closure period. We're doing pretty well.
true.
And I brought this up, with Elaine earlier also. If you bring in more money than what you're budgeting and you want to spend it, you have to have a public hearing to increase your budget. And so there's a pretty significant process to actually say, oh, we're bringing in a lot more than we budgeted and I want to spend that money. We would have to hold a public hearing and go through the process to amend your budget up. And so, there's no process to decrease your budget that involves a public hearing, but there is a process to increase it.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
So
well then,
I want to be conservative with our projections, but I'm just saying, don't you think that it's conservative to budget 100% of 2019, since we're already well above that, after the closure. So from July through September, we're probably have been above average or above the 2019 levels, right?
Right.
Already.
Yes, that is true.
So what do you think about just pulling the 2019 actuals over for revenue on those two line items?
If you want to go that way, that's fine. I just don't know that we'll. If that's what you're doing with travel council and others, then do that. I won't spend it if I don't have it as far as some of our capital improvements or something. There's always places to cut if we end up, hopefully things won't shut down again. Probably not, but you never know.
So
that'd be 650, almost 658,000. What we brought in 2019, right? Or I don't have the interest on my remit thing, so it might be a little more, probably more than that.
Just going to do a quick guesstimate on what your total expenses are with salary and benefits. 5. So, once we plug in salary and benefits, you're going to be in the red again with the revenue projections that you've got.
Well, we have a carryover.
Well, I know that, but I'm just saying, you're budgeting to draw off you're going to end up having to budget to draw off your fund balance to cover that difference.
I'm gonna.
Which I don't think you would actually.
Okay, I'm just gonna get up for 1 second. I have a son playing a guitar in the background. Hold on. I would not do that. I can't think.
I'm just gonna do a quick. Let's see. happens when we put these numbers across.
Okay, I'm back, sorry.
All right. So yeah, if we, I mean, you're still budgeting, you're still probably be in the red a bit. We've got, you know, if we pulled 2019's fee revenue straight across, you'll probably still be about 100,000 in the red. I mean, we haven't hit the expense side yet, but just,
Right. Yeah,
Just
it's
so you
because
know.
we have, right, because we have plans after the traffic study next spring to, if everything is normal levels, do our traffic study and then decide what we're going to do with building another lane there at the entrance. So, you know, we have that project listed here, so that's why we're
Okay.
having to pull from the fund balance to.
Anyway,
not just-
I mean, what I would suggest, Andrea, is to, you know, for one, to be careful with your spending, but to budget at least 100% of 2019
Okay,
in fees. And
Okay.
then, you know, be conservative with your spending, and if we, in 2021, you start to see on your remits that we're not matching that level, then you'll have to say, uh-oh, we better, you know, readjust our expense side.
right.
But if, you know, if you are on track with 2019 levels or greater, then you'll be okay. You won't have to go through a budget amendment just to pull that money back into your budget.
Okay, that all makes sense.
All right, so I'm going to leave that. I've already done that. And then this youth grant, you're expecting that next year?
Yes, it's a 3-year grant with 10,000 a year, so 30,000 total. So yes.
All right, then expense reimbursement's about the same as 2019. Interest, I'll get with Chris Kaufman and calculate that because it's going to probably take a nosedive due to the interest rates.
Oh, because I was going to say he moved more money, member, into
Yeah.
of our fund balance into investments, so it might be the same or more. I didn't know.
Yeah, we'll have to, I'll just make a note to double check that. I see Chris Kaufman got in his car, so he must not be on the meeting anymore. And then insurance. It looked like you had insurance.
We had our patrol bike get run over or damaged. And so we got insurance to pay for that replacement, which actually
so
came in more than, yeah, so that won't, I don't project anything in there.
Then on the contribution from the fund balance, we'll calculate that later after we get everything else nailed down and plug in the realistic salary benefits numbers.
Okay.
So we'll skip salary and benefits for now, but are you expecting just to keep the same staffing levels?
The same staffing levels as we were originally budgeted for in 2020.
Yeah.
We didn't fill that one permanent position this year.
But I mean, you do expect to next year, right?
I believe so. Just kind of seeing how October and November pan out, but
well, I guess that's something you'll have to communicate to Renee and I when we start to
Okay.
build the budget for personnel for next year. So let us know. Otherwise, you know, we'll probably just go straight across with what you had approved.
had approved for 2020 originally.
Yeah.
Okay, then that would be fine.
Okay.
Hey, Chris, this is Chris Kaufman.
Oh, you're still here?
Yeah, I'm on the
Yeah.
meeting on my phone, so I can be on the meeting anywhere. But I can give you a projection on the interest. If the PTIF balance stays the same and interest rates stay where they're at currently, then we can budget 4,500.
Okay. So, yeah, all right. So the reason why that's going up, even though interest rates are going down, is because we transferred, there was a lot of Sand Flats average fund balance that was floating around in combined cash and not in their investment account, so we transferred that over so that it would be reflected where it should be. Thank you. All right, so public notices, roughly the same as 2019. Travel, I guess that's just in case you're going to travel somewhere.
Right.
Office supplies are a bit more than average and 44% more than 2019.
Yeah, I usually budget it at 1,500. That's what it was budgeted at for a while. But the thing that's going to change now is we're buying our own toilet paper, paper towels for our office, and you know, some other supplies. So cleaning supplies and stuff. I'm not really sure. Sean wasn't really sure if we were supposed to be paying for them or if maintenance was paying for them. So anyway, I already purchased some paper supplies this year, big cases, to get us through the year. So yeah, I wanted to have 1,500 in there to absorb those other expenses with the new office. And
well, then, if we're going to do that, then let Sean know that you're going to be purchasing that stuff. And then vehicle maintenance, your request is about 28% above average and 2019 levels.
yeah, I mean,
You
we
expect-
could, well, you know, we have 3 UTVs and we have 4 vehicles, regular trucks. And so I used to budget 4,000 for a long, you know, many years. But you're right, the average is less. So we could do less. I think I had the average on there originally and then I just changed it yesterday. So I'm trying to find what I had before.
Yeah, the 5-year average is 3,152, which is, you know, pretty dang close to what you spent in 2019.
Yeah, it's right. I had
I
it
don't know.
at 3,150 before. Yeah. I just
I
was
think
putting, go ahead.
35 would cover it, I think, right?
Okay. Okay. That's fine.
So,
Yeah. The
all
tires
right.
are all good on, well, there's one that needs tires, but all the others, the tires are good.
And then building grounds and maintenance. It's been budgeted at 2,000, but haven't really been spending that. And so I assume this is, you know, if you got a new place. Do you have any, you know, is it, I guess this is somewhat unknown at this point, but it is more by quite a lot than you spent in 2019 and on average. Of course, you have, like I said, you've got a new building that's yours and a yard to take care of.
Yeah. It's all really, I used to years ago, I've kind of budgeted at 2,000 for a long time when we were over at the BLM yard. So I just put it back at that number because we're in a new place and we don't really know for sure. But yeah, a lot of things are new, but we're still kind of figuring things out. So I wanted to have that cushion in there, but.
All right. And then, again, utilities are quite a bit higher. Do we have any, have you been tracking what your utilities are since you've moved in?
Yeah, I did talk to Christy. It's probably been 2 months since I talked to her, but there was some strange things with that account. For some reason, and I haven't heard the answer yet, For some reason, I talked to Janice Smith as well. Money went into that water and sewer. No, electric. Money went into that from somewhere, like $1,000 went into it in January. So we have a credit. And so I asked Jana and Chrissy to figure out what that is, if that money should have gone to a different department, because I don't see how it should have come to us. So we're not spending anything for electricity because there's like this credit in there. And then there's a credit from last year that was put in there, but I don't think that should be there. So that hasn't been, I haven't heard anything back on that, what's going on with that. So
Well, that was probably before you moved anyway, so it's not even relevant. It probably had to do, I mean, when I looked at the bills, it seems like EMS was paying all of the electricity.
well,
The
no.
old thing.
Oh yeah, up there, yes. But what I'm talking about is the account for that piece of property. Sandflies had been paying $12 a month for the last 5 years on that piece of property after I put in the electric on there, because we set it up so that we could use our, we had sheds there, and if we needed to use our tools and plug them in, which we never really did much of, but we were paying $12 a month for the last 4 or 5 years. Well, all of a sudden, there's this big credit in that electric account. And so we're not being charged, they're taking off that credit every month. We're not owing anything, but I don't know where that money came from that went into there.
Well, all right, we'll have to look into that a little closer.
Yeah, so I kind of just, there's some unknowns there with the electricity, because I would think that, So anyway, I wanted to just keep it pushing.
It probably will go up because, like I said, I think that some of the utilities were being covered by EMS.
Yes.
When not being split out with Sandflies, and so, and then on top of that, we have a whole new building to try to figure out.
Right.
So with professional services, have you got anything specific for that 1,000?
No, it's just kind of there in case, sometimes we have to hire a contractor to do like a small job for us. And so I've just always had a budget for that. Now you can see in 2019, that was actually, we ended up taking stuff out of there, I think for one of the films that we made, and then we got reimbursed by the BLM and Travel Council in other accounts. But so that's why you're seeing, this crazy high amount last year. But
okay, then let's move on. We're kind of running out of time, so we got to hurry up a little.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, just talk about what we need to. I'm sorry.
For the toilet, looks like you're projecting about 26% increase over 2019.
Well, we have more toilets now. So that is what I had in the budget for 2020 originally, was 51,500. And that's what we would have spent if it had been a normal year. So, and I talked to them and there's no increase that they expect. So
that's just a schedule. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're keeping the same administrative fees going to the general fund. Search and rescue.
I hadn't heard back from Jim Webster. The stewardship committee wanted me to ask them if they needed 10,000 this year or not, or if they could take a reduced amount. So I just reached out to Jim, but he said he had to get back to me, and he hasn't yet. So, we can go either way, but my members wanted me to ask.
All right. They've been pretty dang busy this year. Scholarship, what's that for?
That's for the high school apprentices. If they complete their hours, they get a $500 scholarship.
Okay, and then your discretionary, I guess that's kind of like a miscellaneous expense, right?
Yes.
So that looks in line with average. Dumping fees, are 39% increase over 2019.
Yeah, I had originally budgeted 20,000 for 2020, the year 2020, because we're adding a dumpster and at the Fins and Things parking lot, so we have to pay rent on that. And we also have had increased use. We were going up like 4% every year. So that's the same numbers I had for originally 2020. It was 20,000.
But it's based off of like actual calculations of your rental, your dumpster
Yes.
rental and dumpster.
Yes, that I did last year for this year. Now we may see, they will not know if they're increasing their rates until December, they told me.
All right. Then with fuel, you're actually budgeting less than you spent in 2019, but close to the average.
Yeah. Maybe that should go up.
I'll just put it up to at least cover 2019 levels.
Okay, thank you.
Then uniforms are a little above average, but below what you spent in 2019. So are you expecting to make more than the average?
Yeah, I think we may be needing to buy some more jackets and some more t-shirts. So, and then we give, there's a stipend that'll stay the same, but so that eats up some of that for sure, more than half.
All right. Printing and publishing looks good relative to average. And then insurance, I guess we need to talk with Jana about what that's going to be. Have you talked with her yet about it? Is that why you have
No,
a
I
question
just
mark?
plugged in what was originally the 2020 budget.
All right, we'll check with Jana on what that.
Sorry, I should have asked her.
Supplies and equipment, you're asking for a 61% increase over 2019, 36% increase over the 5-year average.
Well, we've had, now that the motorized trail committee has been helping us, we've been paying for fencing materials. I have another, more that I'm going to pay for this year for work they already did. So, we're continuing to do more projects out there. So I wanted to put that amount in there to cover those projects. I mean, the labor's free, but we're paying for all the materials.
All right. Then it looks like you've got a $150,000 capital project. What's that for?
That is, it's for a traffic study, and based on that traffic study, if we build another lane at the booth, which would start back at the top of the hill, and those were amounts that, from 2020 that I originally was going to spend to do that project, and it was based on quotes, late last year, from LeGrand Johnson and another company that gave me quotes on the automated arm and that system at the lane for the lane there, because we didn't want to build another booth. We wanted to have an automated lane for the outfitters, for people that have already paid annual passes. That was an idea that we've been working on with the BLM. They also calculated for me what we would need. The engineer worked with me last year on that. So
okay,
what that is.
Then inventory looks good relative to 2019. Office equipment, though, is up quite a bit. 262% request over 2019 actuals, 33% more than average.
Well, I think we may be having to get some new computers and stuff next year. We're using very old laptops. My computer, I think, is 5 years old. Excuse me, old. So things may crash and burn next year. We'll see.
All right.
We've got one. Yeah.
Inventory is actually less, quite a bit less than normal. You don't expect to buy as many tools, inventory for tools is less, like 50% of average and 60% of 2019.
Well, I talked to Joe in maintenance and he thought we were good. So, I mean, we
Alright.
could, what's my average? How much less? Oh, what did you say? I'm sorry. Average is 2,000. I see. Average is 2,000.
Yeah.
Well, maybe bump it up to 15 then, 100 if we can.
All right. Campground host. We've never really spent much on a campground host. Are you gonna?
Well, we have.
Why is it?
Okay, so Fred Wilkinson, who works for Trail Mix, well, Active Trails and Transportation, he was our campground host last fall, no, this spring, and I guess last fall too. Do we show that? Yeah, a little bit last fall. And so, with some years it's really hard to get a campground host. That's good. And so if everything's open like usual, and he hosts 17 weeks in the spring and 13 weeks in the fall at $100 a week, that's where that number comes from.
All right. So seems like it never pans out that way, but that's what it would cost if it did pan out.
Right.
Maybe Fred's
It
more
would.
reliable then.
Yeah, he's reliable. So years ago we had a few reliable people and it did work for a few years, but then fizzled again. So.
All right, and then staff training. You're gonna bump up your training regimen, or because it's double what it normally has been in actuals.
Yeah, I mean, I usually budget 1,000 in there, and then you just don't know. I mean, it's amazing. I'll set up all this training, and I'll end up not having to pay anything for it. I'll set it up with the Park Service or the BLM and county, and we don't end up paying hardly anything for it. So
Okay.
I
Well,
always
that's
had a
not much
budget.
anymore.
Yeah.
And then looks like you're budgeting for revegetation, which you haven't for a while, or at least haven't.
Yeah, we used to just pull that out of the 610 budget pretty much, but then the stewardship committee members last year said, well, why don't you start, keeping track of that better and put something in that budget, since we have had that line item forever, but I never really used it. So so that's about what we think we'll spend, or probably less, but
All right, so that means that estimating some growth in your employee costs, due to milestones and exemplaries and insurance premium increases, et cetera. Kind of a rough guesstimate right now of about $95,470 in the red, which is mostly associated with drawing off the fund balance for that capital project, which seems
Right.
fine.
yeah, I think by my projections of what we had coming into this year, we had about an $859,000 fund balance coming into 2020. And with expenses, we think we're going to bring in, close to 400,000. And with the expenses, I still think we're going to go into 2021 with a carryover of almost 550,000. So anyway.
All right. Okay. Seems all right to me. Anybody from the board have any comments or questions? Okay, thank you, Andrea. That wraps that part up.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. Next up, I believe, is the library. Let me get that pulled up. And looks like Carrie is on with us. Just give me a second to get that up. All right, here we go. So starting off, I plugged in, starting on the library's revenue side. The revenue comes mostly from property taxes, and then there are also some grants and interlocal agreements. I took Chris Kaufman's 2020 projections for property tax, and we just carry that straight across into 2021. There'll be, some new growth also in 2021, but this figure includes the certified tax rate amount plus what Chris Kaufman is projecting for some new growth, which is, I think it was about 20,000 or so. And the rest of them are also based on our certified rate. There was an increase, property tax increase, so went from, in 2019, 734, and then without new growth, 945, 774, which is the certified rate. If we add in some 20,000 for new growth or whatever it was that Chris Kaufman had, then we're going to end up around here. And then, Carrie, can you give an update on what's happening with the census money? We received that, it looks like.
We have received what we are going to receive, which is just under 27,500. That was obviously a 2020 grant only. That will not carry into any future, well, maybe in a decade, maybe in 2030. But for now, that has been received and has been spent.
Okay. And then we've got CLEF grant, LSTA. Looks like you plugged in.
Yeah, so the CLEF grant is pretty guaranteed. It's right around 7,500 and has been for years. The LSTA grant is a competitive grant process. I never know what's going to be open, and I never know if we're going to be successful in getting it. Now I have increased the 2020 projection to 15,800. We were successful in using, it's complicated, we're going to call it LSTA monies. We were successful in a grant that's coming up right now that increased our mobile hotspots from 24 to 50, and that's being paid for with UETN funds through the state library, which is all to say that that 15,800 has not yet been spent nor received, but will be in the next 30 days.
Okay.
And then for next year, for 2021, there's always the chance that there'll be an LSTA grant that we can go for, but it's at the state library's discretion.
Okay. And then next, we've got our interlocal agreement with San Juan County. Looks like you're expecting that to just stay the same.
Yeah, that's a 5-year agreement. 2021 is the last year. So at the end of 2021, we'll be looking at, we'll be in discussions with San Juan County and what they want to do going forward.
Okay. And expense reimbursement, well, you got 1,000 in there for this year. That was,
yeah, that very rarely occurs. We very rarely have the opportunity to do some sort of, that was a particular grant related to Jesse's attendance at PLA early in 2020. There most likely won't be anything in 2021.
All right. And then Chris Kaufman, do you have interest projections for the library's operational fund balance?
Hey, Chris Baird, before Chris Kaufman answers that, can I ask a question on that one? That interest line item, if you go back years in the past, we were receiving $300-400 at most. And then all of a sudden in 2018, it was 5,000. And then in 2019, it was, 13. I don't have any idea where that comes from, why it was so low and then all of a sudden so high. That's an unknown line item to me.
Yeah, so I can't really speak to, how it was being accounted for before I became clerk auditor. But you have an investment account, and that's the interest that was in that investment account, although Chris Kaufman and I did you know, kind of retool all across the whole county. We ran average fund balances across the year for every fund. And then we set everybody's investment accounts at that average balance, because as you go through the year, you know, sometimes you have more money in your balance and sometimes less. And so we kind of took the average and established the investment account that goes with those funds based on those averages, so that the interest that's being earned on the average fund balance is being accounted for in the proper fund. So I would say, you know, in 2019, your amount of money that was in your investment account was actually way above your average fund balance across the year. And so that's why it kind of jumped up there. It was probably not right, but, you know, that's just how it panned out. But I've been working with Quinn Hall and Chris Kaufman to kind of set those investment accounts at a more realistic running average balance across the year. Does that make sense?
Sure. No,
Maybe.
It makes sense what you guys done. It does not make sense to me why for, 15 years prior to that, it was different. But I do understand also that that wasn't you then. So I'm not worried about it. It just doesn't make any sense. It didn't.
Harry?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. This is Chris Kaufman. Diana never moved any money in or out of the library's PTIF fund the entire time that I was here. And if you look back, I would just assume that's what was happening in the past. An amount was put in there. I don't know why it was that amount, and it was never, ever changed.
That's what I suspect.
So, yeah, what that means is that, Carrie, is that a lot of your fund balance was in the county's general PTIF. And so all the interest that probably the library should have been earning was going into the general fund and not the library fund back in 2017. Then, in 2018, we moved money into your PTIF, and that's when you started to accrue interest off of your fund balance. But, like I say, in 2019, I think there needed to be an adjustment because it was probably a fund balance that wasn't respective to your average running fund balance across the year. So Chris Kaufman and I, we calculated all that out, and we've kind of sorted it out now. And so I think it will be more fair across the board moving forward.
So Chris, I can give you interest numbers if you'd like for projections. Yes. Okay, so we've got the library's PTIF, and then there's a library capital PTIF. So are those separate line items on your budget?
Yeah, we haven't. I guess I should have done the capital side of this also. We can talk about capital at the end of this, but it's not a line item in what's on this spreadsheet right now, but this one I'm looking at is just for the operations PTIF.
Okay, so 1,100.
And is 1,100 for both 2020 and 2021, or? Well, we might have to do an adjustment. Let's just put in 1,100 here now. I think you've proposed maybe some adjustments to interest payments for 2020 because we kind of did that midstream. We've already put in 4135 in 2020, so. But 2021's, going to reflect the equalization of that average running balance and the dramatic decrease in interest rates. So, we've seen a really sharp drop off in interest rates, and that's going to be, reflected across all of our investment accounts across the entire county. Anyway, moving on so that we can try to wrap up by noon. Fines look good relative to 2019 levels. And donations look within spec for average. So that leaves us with about 1,073,000 in revenue for 2021. And then, as far as, moving on to the expense side, as far as, positions go, Carrie, do you expect any change in positions?
I do not expect any changes relative to pre-pandemic 2020. I would like to be staffed
Okay.
at the same level for 2021 as I was pre-pandemic 2020. We're not there right now, but we're providing partial services right now. So that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah. So no increase or decrease from what we started the year off with before
No,
COVID?
Nope, same number of positions and
All right.
other than
So then the
I'm sorry, Chris, other than the annual increases related to the pay for performance program, and then the, of course, benefit adjustment related to health and benefits.
Okay. All right. I'm just going to run maybe a quick calculation here on the bottom line real quick, since we're running out of time. So 2019 salary and benefits total $739. So there'll be some increase to that. I'm going to just roughly calculate 800,000. I just want to guesstimate what our expenses will be with
Well,
salary.
that
and
will be
benefits.
low because the beginning of 2020, we had an additional position that was not in the 2019 budget.
Oh, okay. So how much more was that additional position, do you figure?
It was a part-time position. I don't know.
Well, that's just for the sake of part-time, so I mean, 30,000?
Sure.
So let's go 830 on a guesstimate for salary and benefits. So your expenses appear to actually be less than your revenue at this point, which is good.
Well, and I mean, we can do it line item by line item if you want, but there's only 2 line items that, to the best of my recollection, are even different than
All right,
what we budgeted
let's
for
cut
2020.
the case with those. So which line items are those, Carrie?
So one line item was the art fund. It's minimal. I dropped it down to 400 from 1,000 based on the displays that we've get. And then if you go down a little bit, the other one, again, minimal. Technical services, which is our subscriptions for our databases, our computer programs that we use for interlibrary, for checking things out and all that. That's an increase of 1,000, and that's it.
All right.
And I don't remember much else. There are a couple of things though that we should probably talk about. For the 2020 budget process, we talked about putting money into the capital projects account in anticipation of the remainder of the library roof needing fixed. And
Yeah.
at the end of 2019, we agreed on $20,000 for the next couple of years. We figure there's about 5 years life left in the 70% of the roof that did not get fixed. And we were looking at 20,000. So I think that's accounted for in the capital building improvements line item, that 20,000 for 2020 budget.
All right. Let me plug that in.
Yes, that's not where it got put for the 2020 budget, Chris. It got put up higher on line item on what, 61 on your spreadsheet? Go back down. 61 on your spreadsheet. That's where it got put. It's not correct. It should be where you're putting it now.
All right, so I'll zero that and show that it's being moved down to there. But are we going to spend it this year or next year?
No, we won't spend it for probably 3 more years. We were gonna get a couple more years out of the roof.
Oh, we're more or less safe.
We're more or less.
So do you want to?
I'm sorry.
You want to put that in for next year also?
Yes. But I didn't know how the budget advisory board would feel about that with the, pandemic. So,
Well, you're still okay, probably. We haven't really fully calculated employee salary and benefits yet, but if our guesstimate on salary and benefits is right, you're still running in the black by about 10,000. So I think that's safe to put in.
okay. And then, there's some other things. I didn't put anything in COVID-19 mitigation. That's a new fund, hopefully only for this year. I didn't put anything for 2021.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't make sense for 2021 because unless there's some new source of money, then we can't get reimbursed for it because the CARES Act ends at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Carrie, this is Chris Kaufman.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, just a quick question. Do you have a separate line item for COVID expenses in the library's budget?
Yes. It
Okay,
shows
okay.
I guess.
Number 78.
I guess we should pull that in.
Yeah, you're going to say what I'm going to say, Chris.
Okay, yeah, we can pull that into your calculation. I guess I put that in because it was a separate fund.
Correct.
So I guess just make a note of that.
Because Sandflats and Road Department and others are, they're charging to that emergency other COVID fund that's in the emergency management budget.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and we might not should have done that because theoretically, if we were to do this, the CARES Act money that comes in to the general fund, the component pieces that are for expenses and other, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I mean, if we spend it out of the library fund, then some of that exact same amount should be transferred back into the library fund. You know what I mean? From the CARES Act money, if we're expensing it out of there. I mean, we kind of had to put all this together without knowing exactly what we were doing or how things were going to shake out. But
yes, that's been
regardless, I think all we need to do is just, for you to take into account that library's COVID-19 figures in our calculations. But in this particular case, either we'll need to transfer that money over to the general fund, or transfer the expense to the general fund, or transfer the CARES Act money into the library to cover it. That's an accounting issue, though. It's not really a budgeting issue. So I'll just highlight this to remind ourselves about that. But it's not an issue for 2021, probably.
Hopefully.
Anyway, like your budgets remain, like you say, more or less the same. Bottom line's good relative to what we're planning for revenue. And once we get the salary and benefits plugged in, if there's still some money left over, I'll just touch base with you, Carrie, and see where you want to put it.
Okay.
Okay? Because otherwise it's going to roll over into your fund balance, which is okay too.
Yeah.
Or we could increase the contribution to capital projects also. So does anybody have any questions on the questions or comments on this library budget? This is operations. The capital side of the budget is basically going to be, the revenue will be this money coming in plus whatever is interest on their investment account. But other than that, there's really not much more to their capital projects budget other than what's in their fund balance plus this amount going in. And then at some point when we're ready to, we'll budget, to spend it, probably on the roof.
Yes, sir.
Any comments or questions before we try to use the last 15 minutes to go over some of these other revenue projections for sales tax?
Looks great. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome. All right. Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Carrie.
Yes, thank you all. Have a great day.
All right, let me try and bring up our final agenda item, which is the reprojections for sales and use tax. So some of these are a little, each one's a little different. And I'll just start off with our main sales and use tax in the general fund. I try to calculate 5-year averages, and these averages are averages on growth. And so you can see 2015 was a kind of an odd year for some reason in sales and use tax collections for this account. I'm not exactly sure why, but we had almost 19% growth in 2014, and then we dipped below. And so I think that the reason 2015 was low is just because 2014 was such a huge year. 2014 we saw 18, almost 19% growth. It kind of renormalized in 2015 and then started climbing again. So this average is not, in this case, it's not a 5-year average. I just pulled the average off 4 years because I wanted to leave that 2015 outlier out. So the average over the last 4 years is about 6.05% growth. So this number right here for 2021 is 6.05% more than 2019 actuals. And so then the county's 0.25% sales tax, similar. There wasn't the outlier, so I pulled the full 5-year average at 4.82. And so this figure is 4.82% growth on 2019. Again, we're kind of skipping 2020 as a growth year. The restaurant tax, the same scenario. 8.93% average growth over the last 5 years, and so this number reflects that also. Same with this car rental tax that we've had for a long time. That one saw quite a bit of, we've seen a lot of average growth in that at 18.2, and so I plugged that number in. This new car rental tax is very similar to the above one. The reason why we're seeing this big 57.5% growth is because I think this 2018 year is the first year we started collecting it, and so it's just a partial year. 2019 was the first full year, and so it's going to be, very similar. And so I projected the same 18.2% for this one, using the other one as an anchor, because we don't have a long. This one is calculated differently than the other one. It's population based, and it's got a kind of a complicated formula that I think includes all the different counties that have instituted this tax. There's some sharing that occurs based on population, but it's almost exactly the same as the other one. So. We already talked about TRT, and so for this one, I'm going to retool this number, given what we just talked about. So I'm going to say that this is equal to the 2019 number times 1.045%. So change that to 4.5. Do the same with this. Our healthcare sales tax, this one we don't really have 5 years worth of full years. So this is just based on our average over the 1 full year that we've 2 full years that we've collected, which is 7.25% increase. And so this number is 2019's numbers with 7.25% growth on the healthcare sales tax. I forgot to add in our transportation tax line, which we'll cover when we get to the road department budget, which is on the 30th. But I'll use the exact same methodology for that. You know, it's also a relatively new tax, and so we won't have a 5-year average on it, but we can use the average that we can pull from our full year collections and just do the exact same thing. So does anybody have any questions or comments on these revenue projections and the methodology used?
No, I think you've done a great job, Chris. Pretty thorough.
Thanks. I'll bet you all are tired of looking at numbers now. All right, so then what I'm going to do is go back into our general fund budget and plug these new projections in then. And also, you know, our Fund 22 for car rental and restaurant tax, TRT, all do the same. Of course, this healthcare sales tax doesn't come to us. It goes to the healthcare district and the EMS special service district. But
Hey, Chris. Chris,
Yes?
can you send over the spreadsheet that we updated? Because I was just investigating the billboards, and you made some changes, but if you could send that out for the travel council, that would be great.
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, any other comments on revenue projections? Anybody have any future considerations besides the remainder of our expense accounts across the county?
So Chris, if we want to make adjustments, how to, you know, our worksheets, what are you recommending? Those of us that have gone through this first pass, will we be doing another pass, or do we just do the updates and bring that to the next meeting, or how do you want to handle that?
Well, I think for your budget, Elaine, I mean, once we plug in accurate personnel expenses, then we'll look at the bottom line and go from there. And if there's, I think if, you know, I would just say, you know, if there's minor things, then they don't probably need to be revisited. But if there's any major change from what we've discussed, we should probably review any major changes before we send it on to the commission.
Okay. Thank you.
And there's going to need to be some tweaks probably to these budgets that are their own self-contained funds, just to get them to zero out. But I think we've probably dealt with the lion's share of what the Budget Advisory Board needs to consider as we're progressing. But like I say, if there's any major changes, we should bring those back. Okay? Anybody else have anything before we adjourn?
Thanks, Chris. I thought that was great.
Yeah, thank you.
Looks good. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, so thank you. It's 11:49, and I'm going to adjourn the Budget Advisory Board meeting for October 9th, 2020. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.